Hello and welcome to What the F*** Just Happened Today, your essential guide to the daily shock and awe in national politics. I'm Joe Amditis. Let's get to it. It's Thursday, March 16th, 2023. Welcome to day 786. The Biden administration threatened to ban TikTok if the app's Chinese owners refuse to sell their stake in the U.S. version of the app. TikTok has been under scrutiny over fears that Beijing could request Americans' data from its parent company, ByteDance, for more than 2 years. In 2020, the Trump administration threatened to ban the app, citing national security concerns. Since then, the White House has been trying to negotiate an agreement with TikTok that would safeguard its data and eliminate the need for ByteDance to divest. TikTok, meanwhile, dismissed the threat, saying if protecting national security is the objective, divestment doesn't solve the problem. A change in ownership would not impose any new restrictions on data flows or access. The best way to address concerns about national security is with the transparent, U.S.-based protection of U.S. user data and systems, with robust third-party monitoring, vetting, and verification, which we are already implementing. TikTok is used by more than 100 million Americans. Moving on, the Fulton County Special Grand Jury heard an audio recording of Trump pressuring the then Georgia House Speaker to call a special legislative session to overturn the 2020 election results in that state. The call from Trump to Georgia House Speaker David Ralston lasted about 10 minutes, and at one point Trump asked Ralston who would stop him from holding a special session. Ralston responded, "A federal judge, that's who." The call to Ralston was in addition to the call Trump made to pressure Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger to find the number of votes needed to overturn Biden's victory, and he also suggested that he publicly announce that he recalculated the election results. Meanwhile, federal prosecutors investigated Trump's social media company Truth Social for money laundering in connection with $8 million in loans that have suspected Russian ties. The loans were wired through the Caribbean to Trump Media, which owns Truth Social, in 2021 and 2022 from two obscure entities that both appear to be controlled in part by the relation of an ally of Russian President Vladimir Putin. The wire transfers were reportedly made when Trump Media was on the brink of collapse after its planned merger with Digital World, a special-purpose acquisition company, which was delayed by an SEC investigation into whether the arrangement broke regulatory rules. Moving on, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen told Congress that the United States banking system is sound after the collapse of 3 regional U.S. banks last week. Yellen, appearing before the Senate Finance Committee, defended the actions by federal regulators to stabilize the U.S. financial system, saying guaranteeing the uninsured deposits at the failing banks was necessary to stem a possible contagion which put community banks across the country at great risk of runs. 11 of the nation's largest banks, meanwhile, agreed to collectively rescue First Republic Bank with $30 billion in deposits. Yellen, along with Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell and others, issued the following statement. "This show of support by a group of large banks is most welcome and demonstrates the resilience of the banking system." And finally, leaked tax records show CEOs making millions through well-timed trades of competitors' stock, likely using non-public information. While insider trading laws require executives of public companies to disclose trades that they make in their own company's stock, the disclosure requirement does not extend to trades that executives make in partner companies and competitors. Executives, however, typically have deep knowledge of their industry and extensive access to non-public information about competitors, as well as partners and vendors. For instance, a Gulf of Mexico oil executive invested in one partner company the day before it announced good news about some of its wells. A paper industry executive made a 37% return in less than a week by buying shares of a competitor just before it was acquired by another company. And a toy magnate traded hundreds of millions of dollars in stock and options of his main rival, conducting transactions on at least 295 days. He made an 11% return over a recent 5-year period, even as the rival's shares fell by 57%. That's all for now. You can find the links and sources for all of these stories on the main website. And as always, visit whatthefjusthappenedtoday.com for the latest news and headlines. Until next time, I'm Joe Amditis.